Bozeman's annual police report is out, but once again, the city ranks as Montana's safest, although crimes were up this past year. NBC Montana's Brianna Carroll spoke to Bozeman's chief of police and has more on the factors behind the city's rising crime rate.
According to the latest data, Bozeman is the safest city in Montana with approximately 68 crimes occurring per 1,000 people in 2023. That's compared to roughly 100 crimes per 1,000 occurring in Missoula and Butte and just under 140 crimes per 1,000 people in Great Falls, the city with the state's highest crime rate. But as Bozeman grows, so does the amount of crime.
What we're seeing as our population grows is not only that the numbers of crimes are growing, but also the rate per 1,000 is growing. So our crime rate is slowly increasing.
Bozeman Police Chief Jim Veldkamp says while crime has increased across the board, of particular concern is the rise in felonies. In 2023, felonies were up 28% in Bozeman, a trend that Veldkamp expects to continue in 2024 based on felony crime numbers between January and April of this year, reflecting a 10% increase from that same time period last year. The most common crimes against people that occurred in Bozeman last year were assault at both the felony and misdemeanor levels, intimidation, and forcible sex offenses. And for crimes against property, the most common were vandalism, fraud, and theft. But the city's crime rate tells only part of the story, as not all crimes are considered in its calculation, including misdemeanors that are among some of the most frequently committed crimes in Bozeman.
Even if you have a low crime rate, which we do, although it's increasing, it's low, that is a separate issue from how busy the city is. So we have a lot of calls for service.
In 2023, the Bozeman Police Department responded to 45,511 calls for service. While that number is slightly down from 2022, Veldkamp says the number of serious calls were up, including calls for thefts, disturbances where a weapon was involved, sex crimes, and drugs.
The biggest thing we noticed last year was a change in some of the calls we're responding to.
In 2023, more than 75% of the total calls for service were reactive calls. And when officers don't have time to be proactive, that can be a problem for overall community safety.
DUIs are one of those things that officers do when they have time to be proactive. That's a proactive call, something the officer initiated, and I don't want to get to the point where they don't have time to be out addressing those kind of issues because they're very important to the public safety.
And while the city has experienced rapid growth, the police department hasn't received any significant increases in staffing since 2007. Veldkamp says other challenges over this past year have been an increase of drugs and growing socioeconomic issues within the community. Even so, Bozeman remains the safest city in the state, something the community can be proud of.
We do brag on that. I think it has to do with the people in our community. We've got a great community of people who really want to live here.
Reporting in Bozeman, Brianna Carroll, NBC Montana.